Well, welcome everyone to Let's Talk News. I'm your host, Leticia Remauro, and I'm glad you've landed here, probably quite by accident, because you know darn well we're not usually on Friday nights, right? We're usually Sunday through Thursday. But this week, because of illness earlier in the week, I've decided to give the weekend a shot. And I hope that you join me. And if you don't, because you have other plans, good for you, because I wouldn't. I would otherwise be occupied too on the weekends, but on this particular one, here I am with you, and I'm excited about it. Oh, I am so glad Santillion is here. How are you, darling? How is the flooding? How are the storms? I hope you're safe. Obviously, you must be safe because you're here. You wouldn't be, you wouldn't be saying hello if you were in the middle of a tornado or anything. But I'm glad that you're here and I'm glad that you're safe. Hi, Kevin from across the earth. I love having you here on this special Friday edition of Let's Talk News. And Kevin Young, good to have you too. I'm glad you're here. Susan DeRema is here. Hi there, Susan. Great to have you. And our OG, Lucille Chavone. I'm hoping you're all having a glass of wine and chilling out and, you know, instead of spitting at your news television or at arguing with some trolls on Facebook, you're here and you can actually talk about the things that are getting you crazy, because that's what I want you to do on this channel, is to just tell your truth and get it off your chest. And there's a lot to get off our chest, right? We have so much going on, not only in this country, but in other countries across the world. And I mean, I think the positive that I'm going to lead with is it looks like we're making headway in Iran. Lots of pieces at play, lots. Trump's ploy to have our allies stand up and be counted has worked. We know who our allies are, and at the same token, we know who will never stand by us. And that was important, right? Because, one of the things that Trump said about Greenland was we can't leave our fate and the fate of the whole world to the NATO allies and the UN, and their decision to whether or not we really have an imminent threat or not. And that was it. I mean, it was good that he did that because, quite frankly, everybody's been saying that Iran is a threat, but nobody has done anything about it. Everybody has been piling on sanctions to Venezuela, but nobody ever did anything about it. Same thing with Cuba, same thing with Russia, same thing with China. So Trump has finally done something about it. And for those that have condemned him, having the open conversation about Greenland, shame on you. And, as if he needed to do it, he did it. They proved themselves right here with Iran, with the world's most number one terror organization. Nobody wanted to step to the plate. Well, now, some have. I mean, right now, Japan seems to be his number one love, which I love because we get a lot of electronics from there. And now Ukraine is, giving us the drone technology, which is good because, right, what we've given Ukraine billions of dollars. So that's a good alliance to have. And Israel was always our ally. But he's made the UK and Spain and the Netherlands and the Denmark and all those. He's made them take a side, and that was for future planning with Greenland. So the man knows how to walk and chew gum. It's great. Had to take a break from the trolls because it's like watching Humor Beagle. Their voice is like a fart. Oh, yeah, it is so true. Hello, Debbie Lebedo. NATO allies caved in this morning. Yeah, they did. They all caved, but he has a book. Check it off. It's kind of like Santa. You're getting coal, you're getting presents. We are responsible for ourselves. Our president is doing his job for the USA, which does affect the whole world. Yeah, it does. But there is, just so that you know, there's propaganda all over the place. There are some groups, political groups where there are chats, and I'm watching as these Muslims under false names are posting propaganda about Israel and Trump and the fact, and they're saying that the America is actually losing the war, and people who don't choose to watch TV or read independent news are actually believing them. I created this. This is about Salah Mohammadi, and he was one of the 3 teenagers that was hung in Iran for protesting. And I asked the question: if you were president, how would you handle Iran? And do you think that these 3 young men had a fair trial? And do you know what that brought forth in this political arena? A barrage of people going after Israel and talking about how bad Israel is. I posted because I wanted to see how many trolls were out there in this group. Enormous amount of trolls, and they are well funded. So these bots, they're more bots than trolls. They're funded through China, through Russia, and quite frankly, probably through the Singham organization. So these are the ones who are spreading the propaganda and the disinformation around the news media. And what's interesting to me, what was it? Somebody posted something the other day about that Israel, and I don't know that we talked about this, that Israel was using white phosphorus in Lebanon, and it was a war crime, and so the news, it was all over the news, like all those Al Jazeera and those BBC and all that were carrying it. So I wanted to drill down to see where they got their information, because Israel didn't say they were doing it, right? And nobody tested the smoke. So, how did they know? Lebanon claimed it. No. It was a human rights organization that made that claim. And it turned out that human rights organization, who has been now known for their anti-Semitic commentaries since 2020. And, by the way, who's it funded by? George Soros. But the UN posted it, and then all the news outlets posted it. So there's the reason that Donald Trump wants to pull us out of the UN, because they are not there to unite us. They are there to ensure that the elites undermine America and undermine the West. That's what the UN is all about. Hello, Gloria. Did I say hello to you already? I don't think so. Trust no one. Agreed. Hello, Tammy. How are you? Tammy, you broke my heart today when you were talking about having to leave New York. And I felt the same way when I was getting ready to leave New York. And the thing that made me make that decision, the one thing happened, because I had just run for borough president. And, we've had this place down here for almost 30 years. So I'm quite familiar with the South. And I spent 7 years as a teenager in the South. So, the South has always been my second home. But New York is who I am. I was a New Yorker. So I couldn't bring myself, even though my husband wanted a slower paced life, I couldn't bring myself to leave New York entirely. I thought that I would keep an apartment there since my daughter was there, or just, keep one toe in. But something happened that made me say to my husband, sell everything, we're leaving. And I'm going to share that with you right now.
Just jump on a bus and head down to Florida where you belong, okay? Get out of town. Get out of town. Because you don't represent our values. You are not New Yorkers. You're not New Yorkers.
She was talking about Republicans there. I just grabbed it quickly to underscore the point after I saw Tammy's post. You know, you have to remember she's still the governor. And that year I came up and I was working really hard to oust her and to make sure that, what's his name? Won. But it didn't work that way because, you know, New Yorkers just love pain. What's his name? Jeez. We all know who he is because he's now our environmental guy, but I'll think of it in a minute. False names and false IDs is highly dangerous. Entering the country or residing in our cities, states, and country. Yeah, well, there's plenty of it. Hi, Tony. How are you? Good to have you. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. Lots of businesses are leaving New York and here in Hawaii. Well, they are leaving New York, and let me tell you why they're leaving New York. Here.
They're not going to leave. Y esas compañías no se van a ir de Nueva York. They're not going to leave New York.
So the way that this tax works is it applies to any business doing business here. They could be located in Miami, but if they're doing business in New York, it applies to them. And the reason I believe everyone will keep doing business here is our economy is so large that if it was a country, it would rival the top countries in the world. The second is personal income taxes. I think that the top 1% of New Yorkers who make $1 million or more a year should pay 2% more in personal income taxes. That would raise $4 billion. These are the two major revenue points. But as you've also said, I want to make sure that every dollar we have today is also a dollar that we are spending in the fullest way possible.
Okay, so he's decided that those who have left, he's going to get their tax money anyway, because if you're doing business with New York, they're going to tax you. So if you live outside of New York and you want to do business with New York, they're going to tax you. But I have to argue with him. I don't think people are going to do business with New York because right now, New York's biggest business, booming business, is homeless shelters, drug rehabs, healthcare. New Yorkers don't make anything anymore. I mean, there's a few upstate New York, but not much. Lee Zeldin, that was the one. Lee Zeldin, when he ran against Kathy Hochul, I came up to try and help, but it was too far gone. And New Yorkers just wanted to experience that pain. And I wonder what they feel now. Well, I know what she's saying, and I'll play it in a minute. But yeah. Let's see. Okay. Well, she changed her tune, didn't she? Oh, yes, she did. I have that clip. Now she's asking them to come back. Yeah, she is. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Hochul doesn't have values. No, well, she has values. Those values are, let's undermine the country and let's get a socialist organization going. She's a disgrace to New York. She is, but who are the people that voted for her? Let's find out who those people are. Lee Zeldin, yes, thank you. Mamdani Lai. Well, the thing is that he at least said it straight out that he's a socialist and he wants socialism. They pretended, when I say they, I mean the silly girls, Kathy Hochul and Tish James. They're the silly girls who pretended that they were not going to be socialists and actually are socialists. The South and New York are great. May all make money to survive. Well, the South has its battles, but the battle that you don't have in the South is your individual liberty. If you have a pep up your ass and you want to start a business, the South is the place to do it because the cost of living is very low. Restrictions on businesses are almost non-existent. And you have freedom to start your business. You have great places to do it. Charleston, Conway, Columbia. You have great places to be in business. And if you want like a little New York atmosphere without all of that blue shit, you go to Charleston. Now, don't get me wrong, any big city is going to be more liberal than not, and Charleston is no exception. But they just, well, I can't remember how many years ago, they went red again. They were blue for a long time, and now they're red again. He's digging his own grave like our governor, Josh Green. Well, I hope you're right. We'll see. New York's major business will be Muslim prayer rugs. You are absolutely right about that. I got somebody inboxed me a flyer for that was left in their mailbox around Berger Avenue about call to prayer, and that they were closing the streets. I sent it to the NYPD to see if it was real. They said they didn't think it was, but I don't know. If you hear anything or know anything, let me know. Homes for the homeless made a fortune in homeless shelters here in Staten Island. That was the info last night at community meetings. Oh, but that was the open RFP. That was what I was complaining about when I was running for borough president and warning everybody about that in the city of Yes. They worked in tandem because they wanted that open RFP. So anybody who could get a place could open a homeless shelter, and you didn't have to secure the lease. You just had to give the address, and then they gave you the money, and then you secured the lease, started your business, you didn't even have to have any experience in running a homeless shelter. I loved upstate New York when I was stationed in Fort Drum. I love upstate New York too. And honestly, that's what I thought we would do, is like keep something in Rockland or maybe a little further north. But after she said that, I packed up and left. Thank you for that, Leticia. The political issue is out of control. It really is, Tammy. It's hard. It's hard because that's your home. If you can go outside the city, I would, but she's going to spread the pain. So it's all going to look like the New York side of the falls soon. Westchester has not been spared. Rockland has not been spared. Maybe Western New York might, you might be better off in, but it gets cold there. I don't know. Good evening. Hello, Ramon. Good to have you. My friend in Florida is now moving to Panama. He said lots of people are moving there. He said a Democrat mayor in Boca Raton, 26% of Republicans didn't go out to vote in Boca. Oh, well, that's because they're Jewish in Boca. Margate is Democrat too. Miami just voted for a Democrat mayor. Florida is notorious for going back and forth. Del Rey is a Republican mayor. You can find spots in Florida that are in Democrat. Yes, they closed 3 blocks here in Staten Island for Muslim prayer. Okay, there it goes. So the cops told me they thought it was wrong, and there you go. It was right. Homeless in Hawaii is a big NGO moneymaker. I see it firsthand. It's not just Hawaii. It's all 50 states. This was a con by all of the big blue city mayors. And they just put it up the chain. So, this is nothing new. And, COVID just showed us the corruption. Too much focus on homeless shelters is very wrong. It's a moneymaker. It's a moneymaker, and it's a passionate issue, right? It's an issue of the heart. Oh, those poor people, they need help. We should help them. So let's give our money for a homeless shelter. Okay, so everybody said she's changing her tune. Let's listen to her new tune.
What I want to make sure we are smart about is having a system in place where it's not just taxing for the sake of taxing, and being conscious of the facts that I need people who are high net worth to support the generous social programs that we want to have in our state. Right? Now, there are some patriotic millionaires who stepped up. Okay, cut me the checks. Just if you want to be supportive, but maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded. So I philosophically don't have a problem. It is like I have to look at the fact that we are in competition with other states who have less of a tax burden on their corporations and their individuals. And I would say remote work changed everything. There were people who could only work in an office in Manhattan or work in New York State, and they were captives to our state. They were going to stay. We saw that that's not the case. I mean, Wall Street, businesses looking at Texas, they're not going there because they have a nicer governor. I know that for sure. But they're going there because of the tax rate. We have to be smart about this. But we can fund what we want to fund with what we already are taking in.
Okay, let's break that down for a minute. So she said COVID made us turn a corner. I have been saying that since 2019 when I was with the community board and I saw the taxes going up, and I warned them and I told them, it used to be that you had to be in New York City to have that New York City address. New York City was the all it place, right? It was like they had red ropes around it and they only let in who they wanted to let in, right? New York City, that's why Blue Eyes there said, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Frank Sinatra. Because New York City was its own entity. And if you had the gumption and the guts and the charisma to make it in New York, you can go anywhere in the country and the world and make it. But that changed when we started with the internet and email, and you didn't need to have an address anymore. And she's right about COVID showing businesses, people could work from home. And even though their productivity wasn't as high as when they went to an office, the overhead costs were so low that it actually outweighed the loss in productivity. And so that's when people started working remotely from everywhere in the world. And it didn't matter where your business was located. And that's when the global economy started taking hold. All of this, anybody, if I could see it coming, all of them should have seen it coming, but they didn't see it coming because they're pedantic. No, that's wrong. They're elementary. Okay. They're elementary. And these silly girls, who don't understand math, apparently, just don't know and don't understand that you cannot legislate with your feelings. And more in New York, if you look at the legislature and you look at the city council, more and more women are filling those positions. And that is a huge fucking problem. Let's see. I saw you smelling your dirty. What? Okay, we have some trolls, which is good. She's out of her mind. She is out of her mind. Well, she's not out of her mind. She's just uneducated. Because we don't teach young people how to balance a checkbook. We don't teach them economics. We don't teach them how to start a business. And in New York right now, you know what the number one way to make money, or the number one job producers are in New York City, other than a healthcare industry? Not-for-profits. That's crazy. And where do not-for-profits get their money? Government. We have yet to have local media audit the NGOs here under a court of law. We have filed district and federal court cases with our evidence, but all dismissed, but still on file. Well, I could tell you one thing. I was an executive director of a not-for-profit, and my audits were laughable, absolutely laughable. When I came in with all my books in order, the city of New York said, "This is odd. We've never seen anything like this," especially because the funding for mine was only like $60,000. And they said usually, they're looking at people coming in with a shoebox and napkins. So yeah, and all those $60,000 adds up. I recall the days when the city was in sad shape in the 70s. I fear it's going to get worse. It's already there. They just don't know it. Right now, there's fake money there. If you watch that whole Politico interview, she actually talks about the fact that they were shocked that this year they made a lot of money from Wall Street because they expected that Trump's tariffs we're going to tank the economy. And she complains a little bit about Joe Biden's, bad economy for 4 years and how that really hurt New York City, and New York State rather. But they were surprised, that Trump's tariffs didn't tank the economy, and instead they wound up getting a boon from New York City. And because of that boon, they were able to pay for a lot of bullshit stuff that all those girls in the state's Senate and the state assembly wanted to pay for. All those feel good, kind of girly, my feelings. I got to help all these people. That shit. She's talking about losing her reelection by talking nonsense. I'm going to tell you something. I am so pissed that Elise Stefanik dropped out, because that interview lost her the election. If a couple of things, if Mamdani doesn't rig the Board of Elections, and if we have voter ID, and that's why the billionaires are leaving New York. Hochul did endorse Mamdani. Yeah, she did. Hello, Tom McMurray. How are you, darling? We have a network called the Coconut Wireless here in Hawaii. It's gaining steam. Oh, thank God. I'm loving the reports from Hawaii. I'm so excited to hear more every time you give us some information here. I would suggest to New York to get behind Bruce Blakeman. As much as I wish it was Elise Stefanik, Bruce is your guy. Bruce is your guy. Hochul and Mamdani are destroying New York. It's heartbreaking. The people destroyed New York, not Hochul and Mamdani. The people voted for that. The people voted for that. You have to remember, we get the government we deserve. Let's see. Coconut Wireless Network is making current elected officials switch. Well, that is what's so exciting, Santillian, about what you're doing. I mean, the fact that they are switching to Republican to gain the votes. It's unfortunate, because then you have Democrats on the Republican line. I wish that some, true blue conservatives, true red conservatives would run instead. Wall Street has been booming historically. But now they're going to boom in Florida and Texas, because that's where they're talking about going. All right. So, listen to this. This is interesting. She was asked about her green initiative. Watch.
Hearing these, there's no other word for it, really just horror stories when it comes to people's utility bills. They're getting jacked up repeatedly this winter, and not just because it was cold out. Nice this memo kind of outlining some of the costs associated with the climate law and some of the future costs associated with that climate law and the energy costs there. I know you have identified some of those problems and some of your concerns. Do you think there needs to be a change to the climate law, a narrowing, a rolling back, an amendment, whatever you want to call it, and does it need to be in the budget?
Let's look at how we got here. Back when the law was passed in 2019, it was a very different world. It was a world that had not seen a global pandemic that disrupted supply chains for all the component parts for the nacelles and the wind turbines and everything you need to be able to build offshore wind, the path that we were on. Could not have foreseen that. Followed by some of the highest inflation we had seen in years, directing up the cost once again. And then let's throw on a hostile, very hostile administration in Washington that basically eliminates the tax incentives that businesses count on when they're going to make investments in renewable energy. Solar and wind being at the top of the list. I mean, my first conversations with Donald Trump in the White House were all about how he hates offshore wind. I mean, worried about the birds and the whales, and it's like, really? All of a sudden you're a nature lover? I have to get this settled with the judge to show that we've met those goals, literally met them, which is the NYSERDA memo. Remember the memo that scared the crap out of everybody when they saw those numbers? I've been pushing that memo around for a couple of years. Nobody was paying attention to it. Okay, that'll go into effect under the judge's rule if something is not done during this budget time.
Okay, so let's examine the NYSERDA memo. I know it's hard for you to read there, so I'm going to read it. This is the highlights. Absent changes by 2031, the impact of the CLCPA on the price of gasoline could reach or exceed $200 $2.23 a gallon on top of whatever price gasoline is at the time. The cost for an MMBTU of natural gas, $16.96, and comparable increases to other fuels. Upstate oil and natural gas households would see costs in excess of $4,000 a year. And in New York City, natural gas households could anticipate annual gross costs of $2,300 a year. Those are only a portion of the costs that that would be incurred by New Yorkers if her green initiative passes. Now, she seems to think somehow she's going to get, she was supposed to have it done by February. She didn't. Now they gave a reprieve. The judge gave a reprieve until April. But she's not going to be able to negotiate that. She's not going to be able to negotiate anything down. And to, say that Donald Trump is the problem? No, Donald Trump's not the problem. Why would he give money for the Green New scam? Why would he undermine the oil industry? Why? And how dare she laugh about the killing of whales and birds with these windmills? It's a proven fact. We need to stop. The whole reason for this green scam is to, just like the homeless shelter scams, they're compassionate issues that people can't say no to. So, and it will make their friends money, right? So let's see. We have some stuff here. The only business that's blooming in blue states is U-Haul. That's a very, very true comment. Who do we get in touch with here to get Bruce Blakeman to come to Staten Island? The local GOP. They have to invite him. Andy Lanza, all of them, they have to invite him. Will he come? He knows he has Staten Island. I doubt it. I think he's going to spend his time upstate New York, as he should. He can go to Queens. He can go to Brooklyn. But he can never win unless they can figure out a way to stop the illegal voting in New York City. The left talks about the gas and oil. Where are the green windmill stuff? Yeah, the green windmill kills animals. Hochul and Mamdani should lose all funding from the U.S. for New York City and state. I truly believe that a lot of blue states who are not complying with Homeland Security, they should all, any sanctuary state should lose funding. Debbie Lebedo, go to Staten Island GOP, go online to a lot of updates, okay? Hochul looks like one of the dolls in the attic. She's very scary looking. Use top tier gas. Right. I am the vice chair of a new party in Hawaii, but we couldn't get the 1,800 signatures required due to the fact they have not registered to vote and didn't want to. Folks claim they are not into politics. Very hard to get people, Republicans, to register to vote, especially in places like Hawaii and Alaska, where people go and they go to get lost. They don't want to be counted. I had a big problem registering people from other countries who were naturally Republican, like the Russians who came to America, like the Chinese, because they were living in communist regimes, Venezuelans, Cubans, Spanish. Not Spanish is not a regime, but Venezuelans and Colombians and things like that. They're naturally Republicans, but they did not want to be counted. They were worried, they were afraid, and they didn't want their governments to know that they were registering, even though they were citizens of the United States. They just didn't understand it. Okay. If it's green energy, there's always a pinwheel. The whole idea about green energy is that it's a sham. It's a racket. Dual citizenship is a problem. I didn't even think about that. Interesting. Okay, so quickly, Tish James, watch.
Attorney General is warning hospitals they may be violating state law if they follow President Trump's executive order to end gender-affirming medical care for transgender youth. The letter from AG Letitia James says denying care could be considered discrimination. Hospital systems such as NYU Langone began canceling appointments for some children, according to a report from the New York Times. Trump's order threatens to withhold funding from hospitals that provide gender-affirming treatments to people under 19.
So Trump said, we're not going to give you Medicaid funding if you mutilate Medicaid and Medicare money, if you mutilate children's bodies who are under 18, who are not at the age of consent. In other countries, in like Uganda and in other African nations, and even in Iran, right, there was sexual mutilation of women, and America came to their aid to stop it. But all of a sudden here in America, we're actually adopting that same process. We've lost our minds, clearly. But anyway, Tish James decided that she's going to go after those hospitals. Now, we talked about it, right? That healthcare is one of the number one industries in New York. They don't have to stay there. Could you imagine New York Langone going, I don't know, South Carolina, taking over the healthcare system here, North Carolina? They could do it. That nothing is keeping them in New York. Or they could just say, screw it. All right, we'll close the hospital. See, that's how things went wrong in Venezuela and Cuba and Iran, right? Because you go after people who have more power than you because they have money to fuel their feet, and they abandon you, and then you have nothing. What Margaret Thatcher say, problem with socialism is you run out of other people's money. Just quickly, here's other things that Tish James pushed was, oh wait, what is it? Here it is. It's this one. The so-called FAIR Act would be anything but fair to New York business community, especially Main Street businesses. It strips away longstanding legal safeguards and due process protections and replaces them with a system that invites abuse. That's a recipe for a cottage industry of legal shakedowns where small businesses are targeted not for wrongdoing, but because they lack the resources to fight back. The FAIR Act was something that Tish James championed, and it got passed. Justin Wilcox, director of Upstate United, it would create legal chaos with vague definitions, drive up insurance and litigation costs on top of New York's existing $61.8 billion in excess tort costs, clog courts, and harm the economy by driving businesses out of New York. You know what? The people of New York didn't care. They voted for her, Tish James, and it passed. The bill would make it easier for wealthy lawyers who have demonstrated no actual harm to sue them out of existence. That's the NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Businesses. People of New York didn't care because you know why? The people of New York, they want everything for free because who's left in New York? All of the movers and shakers and thinkers saw this coming and they left. John Catsimatidis, I saw him in an interview yesterday, and he talked about, that he's a New Yorker and he keeps something in New York, but, he just can't stay in New York. It's too much. It's too much. And they're talking about now making capital gains on $750,000. A house in the worst part of New York is worth $750,000. I mean, the worst part of the city is worth $750,000. A co-op is worth $750,000. So you're going to put capital gains on that. You're going to bring it down from $7 million to $750,000. Mamdani was talking about upping the tax for a personal income tax of $1 million. Well, college professors make that money. And if you want to live in New York City proper in Manhattan, you better make $1 million just to become middle class. That's what California, has been driven up to. So that's how they drive people into poverty. Let's see. Dual citizenship is a problem. All right. We have many from Southeast Asia and Pacific Islands can't register to vote because based on dual citizenships, they are the most conservative. Interesting. Those hospitals don't want to lose the funding. Well, they can get it in other states. Federal funding is federal funding. So So go to a state where you're not mandated to go against the federal government. Basically, they have to figure what country they want to be a citizen of. Otherwise, we would have a ton of registered voters. Well, we've got to convince them that America is the right country, but it's really hard with what, Biden and Obama have done. Why would anybody, want to be a part of this insanity, this woke insanity anyway. Hopefully Trump can appease them and get them to register. Top tier is certification of gasoline that has a high standard, which uses detergent to clean out carbon buildup so it doesn't affect the engine, which makes the car run longer. I guess somebody asked that, or maybe that was to me. The mutilation of the kids' bodies scare me. It's opening up 2 more mutilations like they do other countries. They want to normalize it here. Yeah, ever since I was a kid, I remember fighting against sexual mutilation of women. I think Nancy Reagan, that was like her thing when she was the first lady. I'm just appalled that we're actually promoting it now. How quickly we forget. At least Mom Donnie doesn't have taxed the goats. Okay. All right, listen, we're over as usual. Thank you for joining me for this Friday edition of Let's Talk News. I'm going to be back tomorrow, so I'm pretty sure I will. Check it out. We'll see. Let's see. I mean, I know that Trump went back to Mar-a-Lago, and but that war is raging on. So maybe we'll talk more about the war. Okay, love you all. Thank you.